Ready. Nice to see you all. There is something I have to say, and what was it? Um, I wanted to talk about stories. That was it. I forgot the name of the talk. I can't see it on here, but it was about stories. And I was working on. Some of you know I do script writing, and I was working on a project that I'm doing, a creative project today, and I was just finishing it. And one of the speeches at the end, so the last character, one of their speeches was about the stories that define us, and basically, I'll tell you what, the kind of along the lines of what this character said at the end of the script. So she's just having a big realization, and she talks about how the Aboriginal people in Australia, how they sing in order to know their environment. So they sing maps. So they know their environment through song. So they sing to each other to be able to find different locations. A lot of the Australian tribes are nomads, so they travel around the country dependent on the time of years and the year. And in order to find the different places, they remember it through song. And I just thought that was so beautiful when I heard this. So the character in the play is talking about that, and she says she wondered how she would see the world if she knew the world through song. And then she realizes that we're just as creative, but instead of knowing our environment through songs, we know it through stories. So our whole life as Westerners is based on storytelling. We tell each other stories in order to know our environment, in order to know where the bank is, to know how to behave with someone, how to treat someone. We're just not aware that we're always relating to our environment through storytelling. And then she goes on to talk about a story between her and her father and blah, blah, blah. But I just thought it was so beautiful that we know our environment through stories. It's just that we get lost in stories. But we believe that they're true and they're real, and we don't see that we're seeing our environment dependent on the stories that we tell ourselves. So we're seeing it as a good environment or a bad environment or a scary environment, dependent on the story we tell ourselves about life and who we are. And our emotional body and our experience, our physical experience, is dependent on those stories. The fundamental story, the first story that we invent, is that we're somebody inside this body living in relationship to a world. And rather than seeing that as a story, we see that as a truth. We see that as a reality, and it's not a truth. It's not a reality. It's a story we've told in order to navigate the difference between one body and another body. But then we begin to live in it, and we begin to believe that's true, and believe the story of free will and choice and action is true. And so many people get bogged down in that. We're telling ourselves stories continuously that we can't make it, that we can make it, that we're better than others, we're not as good as others, that this is going to happen, that terrible things are going to happen or good things are going to happen. And our thoughts really affect our environment, the way we behave with our environment, the things we do. But the thing that's really amazing is it's nobody's story. It's nobody's thought. So even if you feel guilty now about the way you think or the stories you tell yourself, it's not actually anybody's stories or thoughts, because who is that person? Who's creating all of this? Because you, who you believe yourself to be, is also a story. It's not actually the way it is. It's also a story. So who even creates those stories? Because everything you tell yourself is a story. Everything you think you know is a story about your environment, about your life. And it can be told from a billion other perspectives. There's no truth. And this is why we suffer so much in relationships, because they have one story about what the relationship is and you have another story, and then you both try to find a middle ground of what you think truth is, and there is no truth. There's only what's happening. And actually, what's more reliable is your intuitive feeling about what's happening. Like your intuitive flow, there's a flow that happens beyond the story of you, beyond what you think, beyond the idea that I've got free will or not free will. There is a flow that manifests as this character and how this character should move or not move. But then it gets muddled up into stories and it gets all confused. It's like, no, you're not allowed to behave like that. You have to do this. And then the person gets more and more squashed into a story that it has to live of itself. It has to behave like this. It has to have a degree. It has to have a certain amount of money. It has to behave like this. Has to do that. And all of these rules and stories are helpful to make our society run in a way. But they're not truth. They're not actually speaking about you. And when you're trying to live up to that, when you're trying to present yourself as that story that you've created for yourself, then you become limited and contracted and stuck inside a small and narrow box, and you feel uncomfortable. And that discomfort creates this idea that you don't want to be where you are right here. You don't want to be in this moment. You want to be somewhere else. So most people are living a life that they're always trying to get out of. They're always trying to get away from because they don't feel comfortable. Their body feels tight and contracted. And the discomfort that you feel in your body all comes from storytelling. So there is pain. So some people have pain that's like formed from the fact that their body's, not working properly and functioning properly. But a lot of people's pain is psychosomatic. And what that means is that you tell a story about yourself and then you live up to that story, or you try to live up to that story, or you feel really disempowered by that story. So say if you're interacting with somebody at work every day that's really puts you down a lot, and your story about them is that you don't feel good enough, but maybe you're not even aware that you don't feel good enough around that person. Maybe your story is how much you dislike that person, And really underneath, it's that you don't feel good enough and you feel shamed and you feel that nobody likes you. But on the top surface, maybe there's lots of hate that comes out. Every time you go into work and face that situation and that story, that thought process that you might not be conscious of is coming up, it's most probably hurting your heart. It's mostly making your shoulders tense. And then you actually have physical pain in your body, and it feels like it's a physical pain, but it's an emotional pain. And sometimes people go to the doctors with, say, shoulder ache or heartache or heart problems, and it's got nothing to do with heart problems or shoulder. It's that they think that they're not good enough and that everyone's better themselves, so they're always holding their body in a tense position. Or maybe they're stressed about their finances, so they're always like, and their jaw is, they're always tense. And then that forms who you are, and you feel really uncomfortable in all these boxes, and then you seek to find solutions in time, always looking, what's the next solution? What can I live in? What story can I tell myself that makes me feel better? And you can have stories that are more positive, and I would recommend you to recondition yourself to be more positive and more open and more loving and more like in wonder, in mystery. But the true freedom is recognizing that who you are is this moment, it's everything that's happening here, and that you're not separate from this moment. The truth of life is that it is, and it's like one organism evolving. So we look at all these objects and we think they're separate, but it's just the way that we look. So say when we look at Lisa's body, we think she's one organism that's separate, like it's one organism and it's like a solid organism. But if you look closely at me and break me down, you realize that I'm made up of many things. I'm made up of water, bone, tissue, muscle, brain, enormous brain, eyes, but I don't know, all these different things, skin. And then you can go even further into that and further into that and further into that until you begin to get to atoms and particles. And then you begin to realize, hang on, Lisa is made up of many things, and these many things all function together and make one flow. And on the human level, it appears that I'm a human interacting with you. On a bacteria level, I'm sure I don't look like a human. I look like all these smaller particles, like all these smaller things made up of, like there may be interest in other bacteria or things that are rotting. But from a human level, I look like I'm a human moving. But this world is like that too. Like we think that we're separate from our environment, but our world is like one thing functioning. You can almost look at it as like a flower. If you zoom out enough, it looks like a flower. It looks like everything in this world, on this planet, is moving as one. And we're all humans, like in here fighting for our own survival, thinking we're separate from things, taking. But we're all part of this one organism that's flourishing and evolving. And it's so super beautiful. And my words now don't come out of a separate Lisa that can be all proud, like, oh yes, look at me, I have very big chest. Rather than it being Lisa, it's coming out of everything. It's coming out of the whole world. It's coming out of this world that's evolving, and it's like speaking to itself, just like the water and the blood mixing together to make my heart pump into, I don't know what it does. It goes around here and it puts oxygen. Like all these things work together to make this living mechanism that looks like Lisa, just like all of us come together to make this beautiful flower of our planet. And then we all try to be like, in our little groups, like, I'm behaving like myself. And we suffer over that because there is no separation. Like my thoughts come from all other humans. If we hadn't evolved to be able to speak, I wouldn't be able to say these words to you. It comes from all the thinkers and all the meditators and spiritual people of the past, and it's got nothing to do with me. I'm just an instrument now which is saying it. And then one day these words will move on to another instrument and they will speak it out. Woof, Khaleesi. And Khaleesi's woof comes from all the dogs that have been before. If there hadn't been all these dogs from before, come on in, Lucy. There hadn't been all these dogs from, hello, yes, you are wonderful. Then Khaleesi would never bark, and she'd never have a pointy nose and big teeth and big, beautiful ears, and there'd never be the amazing creation we know as Khaleesi. So I got a bit excited then, and then just started squeaking. Happens, Khaleesi, sometimes, doesn't it? We get excited and we turn into a squeak. Once again, there is no separate squeak. That squeak comes from all other squeaks. You begin to respect me as a public speaker that says all those wonderful things, and then you watch me and then you're like, ah, yeah, she's human. She squeaks. She sings to her dog. It's so beautiful. It's total and utter love, this subject. It is love. I love E. And what I'm doing when I'm singing is I'm actually doing something very positive, which is sending positive chemicals around my body. And I recommend it to you. Singing makes you feel really good. And I'm a terrible singer. I cannot stay in tune, but I love doing it. So that's the end of that. Let's see if there's any questions. I hope it's all going nicely, the video and the audio. This is what I'm going to try and hopefully use when I'm in India. I'm so impressed with my bear's butt. Looks like a bear's tail. Pardon me. Okay. Oh, don't make me now. Very good Skype. I haven't used it for ages on here. What time is it in Hawaii now? What time? So it's now. I have somebody asking me about times in Hawaii. So it's now 5:30 in England. And what time is it in Hawaii? How many hours are we different? I know there's some Hawaii people listening. They want me to work it out, and Hi, Lisa. How do you watch the live stream? On YouTube. There you go. Hi, this is from Sun. Hello, Sun. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for everything. With pleasure. I just wanted to say, can you share your experience about navel gazing and what effects it had in your journey of awakening? I just want to say that I love you and I'm eternally thank you for whatever's happening. Thank you. I ask this because I feel practicing a yoga technique which works on the Makyapa chakra with mantra really balances many things I have been struggling with in the animated life, like bringing attention to parts of the energy body which are so inactive really helps to be more organic. Yeah, and so this is helping improve the human on the human level, which I recommend doing, like balancing out the human. And I can help and speak to you about that, but predominantly what I speak about is non-duality, which is that which is experiencing the person. And somebody was asking me another question, I forgot who it was, they sent the question earlier, asking why I speak about consciousness and not just everything, like what is, like why I say about consciousness. Predominantly, I use the word consciousness now because it's easier to communicate, just for that simplistic reason. Like, ultimately, there is no consciousness that's separate from everything. There is simply everything and nothing, everything appearing as everything, and it's nothing, it's not got a source. And that everything is conscious of itself. There's not something in here that's experiencing. There is everything. So, doing these yoga practices are about relaxing the person. So when you identify, you become a story that's inside the body. You become somebody that's inside the body looking out. And the yoga techniques are about balancing that somebody. So that somebody then begins to feel uncomfortable over time, and it maybe tells itself negative stories. And as it becomes more uncomfortable, it seeks to leave this moment. It seeks to find refuge in future or past by imaginings of getting this, and feeding itself. 7:40 a.m. Thank you. Hello, Lisa. Good evening from India to you and Khaleesi. Lisa, is the demand of time that liberation is flowering everywhere, where before it was more in seekers who did yoga or stayed in the mountains and caves? I'm not sure about that. I don't know. Hey, Thomas. Hey, Julia. Hi, Edith. I like so much your demonstrations of what you think. What's Lisa? Hi, Kalyan. Hi, Asborn. Hi, Lisa. I like to listen with pleasure, and I have a question. How can I be aware or try to be if there's no one here? Thank you. That's exactly it. So when you begin to learn this subject, they say you've got to put your attention into the moment. So you've got to put your attention into what's happening, or put your attention into why I am, or the consciousness. But who does that? That's only something that can be watched. That's only something that can be experienced. Gosh, it's so much easier being able to use the word consciousness and the I am. Like, I wouldn't be able to explain that if I didn't use consciousness and the I am. But the one that's trying to put their attention into the I am, or into what's happening, is being watched, is being known because it's happening. So anything that's happening isn't solely you. So if you're putting effort into being present, that's just a fraction of you. That's not the experiencer. That's somebody that's doing something. But who you are is consciousness, which is all things, which isn't separate. It is all things simultaneously. And then there's a person that's trying to put its attention into consciousness, but consciousness is everything. So even thinking is everything. But however, when that person is really suffering, that practice can be really good for the person to settle the person down. But it won't lead you to enlightenment, because who becomes enlightened? Who? 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 Who becomes enlightened? There's nobody to become enlightened. Everything that you think you are is a movement of stories, and you're constantly redefining yourself, and your friends are constantly redefining yourself, and you're constantly redefining your environment through your storytelling, but they're not fixed things. There is no somebody that's fixed inside the body, and there isn't an environment that's fixed out there. We use stories in order to navigate our environment. It doesn't mean that you are a story, or that your environment is a story. The McDonald's shop isn't that it's like 4 turns after B and Q. That's not what McDonald's is, and it's not where it's come from. Like, it was developed from somebody called MacDonald that came from Scotland and had a big red nose and looked like a clown and was a little scary. That's not what McDonald's is either. We know that about shop, but about ourselves, we're like, well, we're all the past events. Everything we've done. We're our name, we're our looks. Even though we know it's always moving, everything we say about ourselves, we can also say a different way the next time. And we dislike it when we see people doing that. We're like, but last time you said this about yourself. But of course, everybody's always changing their mind about who they are, because who they are isn't fixed. And the more that we can be okay with that, the more that everyone can be their self, not a fixed thing that's always changing their mind and changing who they think or feel themselves to be on the character level. And seeing that there is something that's permanent, and what's permanent is everything, which is nothing. Everything experiencing itself, which is nothing experiencing itself, because everything and nothing are the same. Like, if it's everything, it's no one thing. Everything and no one thing. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. This subject is beautiful. It's nice doing it through the phone. I am eternally thankful. Did I finish yours? I think I got a little distracted by another question, but just did I finish it? Yeah, I think I did. Hello, love. Sometimes, hi, Callian. Often lately, negative thoughts make me believe my own unworthiness to a degree that I would like my physical body. What is interesting, whenever I follow through feeling the thoughts of giving up and death, I feel very relieved afterwards and a whole new realm of possibility opens up. What is happening? Thank you. To leave my physical body. Yeah, the reason why physical death seems appealing to you is not because you actually physically want to die, it's because you feel the weight of your story and that's what you want to do. Like, it feels weighty to believe in being you. And you most probably, more than likely, have no negative stories about yourself. So you think that you're unworthy or not good enough or never can make it or won't be successful. And of course, that's really weighty to have these negative ideas weighing down on yourself, and none of them are true. What is true? You don't need to be any of that. Anything that you believe yourself to be. And I think one of the most depressive thoughts that you can have is that you can't do it and that you're worthless to this society. Because as humans, it's important for us to be part of the group and to feel like we're participating as part of the group. And so what we can get is very negative stories about ourselves, that we're not worthy, we're not good enough, and none of that's true. But we form these stories and we live this story, and often this happens often, is that enabled helplessness in our society. Because we're quite wealthy in our society, in Western societies, what can happen to people is they have overprotective parents that don't want them to leave the nest. That's always sort of implying that they can't do things for themselves or can't make it. An education system that does this, or we have benefits that do this, and there are good things about benefits, but I also think it gives people this enabled helplessness. And when you help people too much, it makes them feel like they can't do it for themselves, and that feeling really makes people feel suicidal. And I've realised a lot of young men that I've spoken with have this feeling like they can't make it, they won't make it, that they're not good enough, and it makes you feel like you don't want to be alive. But it's not that you don't want to be alive, like kill the body. It's that you don't want the weight of feeling like you can't do it. And the answer to it is seeing who you truly are, that who you really are is this moment, and this moment is love beyond any story. And then in the story, try and recondition yourself to the more positive. See that you can do things and focus on more positive things throughout the day, because you're focusing on everything you do as you being a failure, and you know it might not even be conscious of it. Most of the time people aren't. If they go and put the washing out and internally they're feeling like they put it out like a failure, they didn't hang it up right, or they go and wash up the dishes and they think this, and or whatever they do, and then they just get more and more exhausted and more feel like they can't do anything because their mind is constantly putting them down and they're not even conscious of it. So often when I ask people, you know, how they feel about something, I know that what they're going to tell me isn't true, because that's just what they think on the surface. But underneath that, there's these other deeper thoughts. And I think that often suicidal thoughts come when you feel like you can't participate in this society, that you can't make it, you can't earn money, you can't be successful, you can't give. And all of us want to give, it's our natural instinct. Like when I come, so I'm just now at my mum's house, and Khaleesi comes, and you know, straight away what her joy is to go around and guard the house. She goes around and pees on stuff, and then she goes out and checks out the boundary, and throughout the day she's constantly doing her rounds, making sure the house is secure. It's like her job, and she wants to give that. She wants to protect and give that, and it gives her motivation and joy. I see how proud she is going around the perimeter and how much she enjoys doing that. And it's the same with us humans. We want to give our heart, and we get it all confused and muddled in all these stories of being told what we have to be. And really, our body, our heart knows what we have to be, and we get muddled by power and hatred and success and money and greed. And deeper than all of that, there's this like natural love for doing things, like Khaleesi wanting to guard the garden. Like she wants to do it naturally. I don't have to like set an alarm and be like, Khaleesi, go and check the garden. She naturally is doing it. Her body's like in tune with it. And she loves it. And I feel like we're trained in the wrong way in our society. We're trained to do things out of force, which I think makes people depressed and exhausted and feel hopeless and not loved, rather than letting people glow and shine and give what they can give. Where it's like this pressure, you've got to earn money and you've got to do it like this, and it's like a society mentality, a society story, which I think can lead to depressive thinking and feeling. Whereas really what we should be focusing on is what we love and what our heart naturally wants to give. I'm a triple Gemini. I'm going to be a talker in the society. I'm going to be an intellect, a talker, and a philosopher. Funny that's what I ended up. Like I couldn't help it. It was just what I always wanted to do. Like I think I wrote my first play when I was like 15 years old, and I was writing stories, and I just was obsessed with stories. As a kid, I remember like, I would have this little tape recorder and I'd make all these little houses for my hamster. And then I would record his journey through the houses. I'd be like, and now he's making it over like Death Bridge. I just loved it. And like my little dolls, like lining them up and making all these stories. I found it fascinating, and learning from stories and understanding the world through stories. I loved theatre and Shakespeare and performing and all these things that involved storytelling. To me, story was wonder. It was like a great story leaves you in awe at the world, but it also teaches you things about how to be human. It's so beautiful. But I understand that's not for everyone. And if you made another human try to do that or have my feeling towards stories, it would be like it would be like effort, like the alarm being set. And all of us have these natural qualities of giving, and giving feels like love. And it's like a letting go as well, simultaneously, like you give it. Like I give these words and I totally let them go. They're now everybody else's words. Like it's like a total giving. And this is what should be encouraged, I think, in society. I think, though, that we make people feel like failures because we concentrate on mathematics, on English, on, exams and examination and stress and getting things done, and then having to work in these particular environments, and distrust, like having to have checkups on people because we don't trust them, rather than encouraging empathy and love. These are two main qualities which I think make a great society, is empathy and love, that people want to do things to give to their society, to help others that are in their society and want their society to thrive. I don't think many people feel like that. I think a lot of people feel like, stick it to the man, stick it to the man. We are not sexist anymore, Lisa. Stick it to the woman. But that sounds incredibly rude. Yeah. You got to just say, stick it to the man. You say stick it to the woman, it sounds terrible. In English, that sounds like you're wanting to rape her, you know, it doesn't sound good. Meh, 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 meh. So nice to be doing this live stream like this, because sometimes I'm a little uncomfy in my chairs, you know, the hard chairs. It's nice thing in the sofa. Boop beep boop beep boop beep boop boop beep boop beep. Sorry, got into a Khaleesi song. Boop beep boop. Nope, not gonna do it. Zoop. You see, I just can't keep the mouth shut. Triple Gemini. All day I'm making sounds. I don't always like talking all the time, but I like to make sounds. A lot of verbal diarrhea. Okay. So on the note of suicide, it's not you that wants to die physically. It's that these stories that you convinced yourself that you are wants to die. So what is it that's always here? Remember who you truly are. A story comes and goes, a feeling comes and goes, an idea comes and goes. What doesn't come and go? And that's love, that's total love. What doesn't come and go is what you are. I just do the interlude while I go to the next question. Hi, Lisa. Hello, Astouche. Astouche. After awakening, how important is it? People love this awakening shite. They love the story of awakening. After awakening. After awakening. It's better than the Jesus story. Better than the Muhammad story. Better than the other religions, because we become enlightened. After awakening, I was just making fun of one particular story that we have in spirituality. After awakening, yes, of course, we here on this YouTube channel, we're all the awakened ones, but yes, we carry on. How important is the life of the human? For example, is there still value placed on things such as money, relationships, looks, etc.? Or do these become largely insignificant in comparison to the happiness that comes with awareness? I would imagine that an awakened being would still prefer to have a great life on the human level, but at the same time, I don't see why that would even be important anymore. Thank you. Thank you, Astouche. Question mark. Well, Astouche, after awakening, after we all awaken, which we are all here awakened beings, compared to the rest of society that isn't awakened, us who are awakened beings, after we've awakened, of course we don't care so much about looks or money, relationships. We're beyond that. We're more interested in the internal glow of the heart. So the heart's just like boom, boom, boom. Pff. All that's important is love. That's all that's important. Screw everything. It's love. Love is all that's important, and love guides the way. And if love guides you to earn billions of dollars, then fantastic, because what difference does $1 billion or no $1 billion make? It's all what's happening. It's all this one organism expressing itself. If love guides you to own a dog home, then it owns a dog home. I doubt after awakening, even though there isn't really such a thing, nobody really awakens, but after awakening, I doubt it that you're going to be a butcher or murdering people or a psychopath or a paedophile. I doubt that's going to be the chosen careers. I suspect it will be more tendencies towards altruism, but I haven't done an experiment on everybody's brain, and I also believe in the story of awakening. So really, who's awakened? There is nobody that's awakened. There is just one expressing itself, and that one was the same one before or after the human realized, which the human doesn't realize, or the human moved out of the way. But thank you for your question, and thank you for letting me mock you. It's not personal. I don't mean to personally mock you, even though it seems personal. It's not meant to be personal. I mock myself too. But sometimes maybe it comes a little bit harsh, but I don't mean it as harsh. I love you very much, and I mean you well, and I wish you everything. If there's anyone that I've ever been harsh with, I really mean you everything. I don't mean to sound like I'm putting you down or laughing at you. It just comes out sometimes, and it sometimes maybe sounds that way, but I'm laughing at us all, the condition of being human. It's a funny condition. And Mita. If everything is constantly changing and transforming, then transforming or recording thoughts is helpful. How is it good for non-dual speakers to relate to the world? Does their conditioning change after liberation? Yes, their conditioning changes after liberation more than likely, but there's nobody that gets liberated. Amit, are these questions for you? Like, it's most of the time the questions are for you. It's like you're taking in the information for you to like put on yourself, like for you to add to yourself. Do you think that spiritual practices are helpful or harmful, or both, or neither, obviously? The reason I ask is that I hear a lot said about spiritual practices being seeking itself, or serves only to add fuel to the seeking energy. I don't know if it adds fuel to the seeking energy or doesn't. I mean, if you weren't seeking for one thing, so if you weren't standing on your head with putting your finger on your tip of your toe and bending your leg into a funny position, doing yoga, then you would be seeking for something else. Whether it does add fuel or doesn't add fuel, that's not the point. The point is when you're seeking to, say, put your attention in the present moment, you believe you're going to get enlightened, and that's not true. You are never going to get enlightened. So putting your attention in the present moment is just about you becoming a more balanced and healthy human. And doing that, I think, is good. It's like it's balancing out the human. It's obviously and logically good. It's like rather than being wrapped up in what you think and in anxiety and fear, you're putting your attention into the moment, which most of the time is relaxing. So of course that's a good thing on the human level. It's better than taking drugs and shooting up drugs, than binging and eating and binging on games or TV. It's way better than that. But you don't get enlightened. You're never going to get enlightened. Who gets enlightened? There is only what's happening. And that's free presence right here. Hi Lisa. We talked a few months ago, hi Vlad, about me having an opening of the heart and started feeling unconditional love for another person in a split second. It has passed now, that feeling, but I started thinking that maybe I didn't know what to do with that love that I felt inside me. Is this something we should do with the love when it appears, or is it normal to let it do whatever it wants, even if that means going away from us? Thank you so much. Wish you everything. Um, uh, um, it's the key to that love is seeing that it doesn't belong to anyone or anything. What often happens is that love begins to open and then we project it onto someone or something, or we try to hold on to it, or we believe that we got this love. But love is not a thing and all things, and as soon as it becomes contained into anything that belongs to the person, then it begins to slowly hide again. It's there all the time. It just isn't anything. It's like total nakedness blowing in the wind. Like nothing there. It's like a vastness. It's like you don't own anything. There's nothing that belongs to you. I don't believe in enlightenment. I know I want something though. Do you? Oh, do you think spiritual? Yeah, you want something though. What you want is, and that's a very good point, what you want is the end of seeking. Seeking is uncomfortable. It makes you feel agitated. So right now there is seeking inside of you and it feels like it's an agitation. It wants to go somewhere. It wants to be something. It wants to have more than what it has now. And it imagines and daydreams about what it lacks or what it doesn't have. And you're not conscious a lot of what the seeking is. It just feels like an agitation. You're not settled here. You're not fully at home here. You wouldn't call this home. You're striving to get something else. It's like a built-up agitation. And that agitation on the human level is never settled. It always goes on like that until it's seen and recognized. That all you ever wanted was this moment. All you ever wanted was what's happening. Then why was there a need for a person? Why couldn't love come by itself without an object or a person? Or is this just a first step? It's just a first step. It's nothing to do with that person. It's just in that looking at that person, you suddenly felt completed and you thought that it was that person. But it's that the seeking dropped away. So in that moment, you didn't want to move into time. You were totally happy here and there was just this immense love shining through. But it's not to do with the person. And whenever there's a person involved, there's always this tiny bit of like greed in there. Like when you put it onto the person, like and believe it's the person, it's almost greedy a little bit. It feels a tiny bit violent, but you can't really, like just a tiny bit, but you can't really see that until you experience the love that has absolutely no seeking in it. But it's beautiful that you loved, even if you thought it was a person. A lot of people never even get to taste love. Question: how to erase attachments? You are beautiful. You have become someone special for my higher values. Thank you. Yes, but my mind thinks it must be necessary. Yeah, to do practices. Yes, okay, do practices then. To relax the person. But you'll eventually see that everything's here, whether you do practices or not, and everything is who you are, and that's the gift. It's not about you arriving somewhere. The gift is your presence. The gift is what's always been here. It's just the illusory you has always been fixated on time. Once seen the true nature is non-duality, then it's easy to say that every thought, every feeling is the same energy and it's okay. Me is the same energy, but the seeker wants liberation from me or separation. Sorry if my questions are unclear. Thank you for your patience. Yeah. Yeah. The person always wants something and it's now thinks it's liberation. Rather than it being a house or a woman or children or money or this or that, it thinks, okay, it's liberation. And then it formulates a story of what liberation is. What's always here, what's never left, what's here in every experience and doesn't move. The story of liberation comes and goes. There's something else that's so wonderful and pure in the most intimate sense of being. It's called love, and it's who you are. It's who you are. But I have to vermoes now. Vermoes about huis, which in Scottish means I have to go, which in French is au revoir. In Spanish, it's adios. Yeah, we could go through all the languages, but we're not going to. I love you very much and thank you. And next time I stream will more than likely be in India. Very exciting. So just some advertisements. If you want to come and see me in India, there is open talks, which you are welcome to join. You just turn up on the day. That's on in Goa and Rishikesh and Tiruvannamalai. And I have a retreat, but I have a feeling that's booked out now. Maybe there's one space left. You can write to the organizer and find out. But thank you very much. I love you. Bye.